We good? Are we on?
We're good.
Hello?
Alright, so here's the deal.
Hello? I was told technologically we were upgraded this week. How are you, man?
Hi, how are you? I'm good.
You're good?
How's everything?
Can you guys all hear me?
Everything's good.
Yeah.
Great. So, Jeremy, that's what we're doing.
So this is our technology test right here.
Alright, everybody listen up. We are on speakerphone on a conference call. That way there's no live stream delay. You guys all got that?
Got it.
Alright, so here's what we would love for each of you to do. If you could mute all of your calls so that we don't hear everybody's background noise. And then if Jeremy wants to talk directly to someone, we know who wrote each article or who sent in the beat sheets for each article. So we'll tell that one person to come off of speakerphone.
That's perfect.
All right,
That's
so
absolutely perfect.
that sounds great. So if everyone could just mute their own phones, then this will go smoothly.
Can everyone hear me?
They can all hear you.
Well, I'm not
We
asking.
can hear you.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Do you want to do a do not disturb on that? Because is that my phone?
No, this is my phone.
You want to just do a do not disturb on that? Just
Yeah, I'll turn it on like airplane mode.
Not airplane here. I'll do not disturb. I think you just go like this. Hey guys, how are you? We're just dealing with a little bit of tech difficulty,
Yeah, right there. Perfect.
but I think we're gonna make this work beautifully.
I think it'd be much more entertaining if
Hello?
you could see Jesse's set.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. You're on. They're good.
I'm so excited to be able to talk to you guys and hear some feedback. So and can we just turn that around so that my ADD doesn't kick in and I don't start like looking at myself and wondering why I look fat from this angle? Firstly, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Hey, Justin, make sure that door is closed there. Do you mind that? Thank you guys so much. I apologize for sorry, we got stuff beeping and things going on. We got auditions. We have we're doing a Netflix show. We're doing a mini series for Netflix called Best Worst Weekend Ever, and we currently have auditions going on. So we're trying to figure out our flow here. Thank you. I apologize about last week. How many people are new to this? Anybody here new to the class? Anybody in the room new to the class? What's up, man? We got a new guy here. What's up, man? What's your name?
Yoni.
Yoni? How are you, man? You're new, first time?
Yeah.
Very cool. And it seems like people keep jumping in on the call. So I'm going to try my hardest not to get distracted with my ADD with the beeping because I think this is going to work really nicely. So for those of you who are here the first time, I just want to welcome. This is exciting. This is our third or fourth class, and this is all just about figuring out what this class is. It's a lot of it's just a little bit of beta testing. Who's in the class? What does everyone want to learn? Explaining some of the things that some of the things that I've gone through and some of the things that I've learned through the years. I just want to reiterate, as I always do, that what I'm saying or what I'm talking about in no way is gospel. In no way am I going to say this is the absolute right way of doing things, because it's art at the end of the day, and there's no absolute right way of doing things. All I can do is give you advice from things that I've learned throughout the years, and some of the advice might be good, and some might be the worst advice you'll ever have. So, Jesse, are people sending stuff in?
Yeah, we got
Oh, is that what you're responding?
Yeah, we got a dozen people watching already.
Got it. Guys, so how many people, just out of curiosity, you might have just write, how many people are new to this class online?
This is a good test to see if they can respond on the video with the chat immediately.
Got it, because so nobody's actually speaking, nobody's
No,
responding
they
to me?
muted that.
Got it.
If you want them to unmute it, they can.
No, that's fine. Let's see. Yeah, I'd love for you guys to respond and see how many people are...
All right, no one's responding yet, so let's just assume that there's still a delay with the responding.
Got it. All right, so we're still working out the kinks. All good. Anyway, so a little bit of a review. We missed last week. I'm going to try my best to do it every single week. I've actually been back and forth to Syracuse. I believe we are closed on the school. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe we are closed on the school. And we're moving forward. We're meeting with a lot of, we're partnering up almost every day with another amazing professor who, when we're while we're building the school, we're going to bring in some pretty incredible people. Um, and yeah, we've got a lot of, we're actually starting our first movie out there in a few weeks, September, the end of September. It's not a high school movie, but nonetheless, it's a movie, and that's it. So let's just review. So our homework for those of you who were here, the homework was if you found an idea that was a commercial idea that we all kind of agreed on that was a trifecta, the homework was to write a Blake Snyder beat sheet, right? And how many people did the beat sheet? How many people sent in beat sheets?
8, and we've got them all right there.
Okay, so we got 8. So we have really 8 people from the articles were trifectas and approved
Oh, no.
trifectas.
Some of them couldn't find trifectas, or they thought that they found new articles with trifectas, and this is
So they were anticipating trifectas.
Mm.
Got it. Okay, so let's just, can we start with the trying to review what a trifecta is, and what, you know, if you don't mind, if we could talk about that, because
Sure.
then we'll jump into maybe somebody who actually went ahead and took the initiative and went into the beat sheet because we were off last week. That would be great. So do we have a new article that was submitted by somebody?
Yes.
It's on the
New
list.
articles are over there. Just having that list, guy.
Yeah, do you mind handing me a new article? So to review, while I'm being handed an article, we're talking about how do we come up with a commercial idea? How do we come up with an idea that we're like, okay, this is a commercial idea to spend the next 3 months to 6 months writing a first draft on, 6 months to another 6 months to rewriting, and if you're lucky, somebody likes it, responds to it, and gives you more notes, and then you spend another year to 10 years rewriting the movie, and then if you're lucky, somebody says, I want to make this movie, and then they're going to give you more notes, and you're going to do a lot of rewriting. So ultimately, we just want to make sure that the idea that we're picking is something that is worth spending an insane amount of time on. Does that make sense? So we're questioning where do these ideas come from, and I took the concept of trying to find ideas from headlines, from the internet, from articles, from newspapers, and there are 3 types of things that we're looking for. Just to review, Alex, you're an old pro. What are the 3 things we're looking for to make something a trifecta?
Oh, geez, putting me on that.
No,
spot.
Jesse, what are the 3 things we're looking for? Anybody?
I remember.
Character, objective, like story and setting.
That's 4, right?
Yeah.
So
Um,
if you have a single, right? When you know you hit a single, it's
Bethany's
one.
got it.
Bethany, here, Bethany, can you speak up? Let's see if this works.
I said in the comment section, the 3 things look for a story, a person, and the world.
Becky, I just want to say it's so nice to hear your voice, and have
So, thank you.
Bethany, right? Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
said. So
Yeah.
Bethany, yes. So the 3 things that we're ultimately looking for in order to get the trifecta, one is a person or a character. It doesn't need to be a person. It could be the story of a dog that was lost for 10 years and then discovered, his way back home or her way back home. It could be a goldfish that gets swallowed and goes through your stomach and or flushed down the toilet, or so it just I don't want to limit it to person. Most likely you're not going to read a story about a goldfish that gets swallowed and has to, but that's ultimately that becomes Finding Nemo or something like that. So to most likely it's going to be a person. What was the second one you said, Bethany?
Story.
A story. Okay, what's the most important thing in order to have a story in these articles? What's the most important thing? Conflict. But what's the most important?
Conflict.
So so conflict is the second level of it. What's the most important thing? What do you need for conflict? Let's dissect conflict.
You need opposition.
Okay, what do you need? What's even more important than having an opposition? Where do you start from?
A goal.
Correct. You need the objective. The most important thing in order to make something a story, and just a story, is a goal. some goal about getting from point A to point B. So even if the article doesn't necessarily have a character in it or a great description of a character or anything, if it has someone, call it someone X or something X, that has goal A, right? Then automatically you have a story, right? Now, conflict is second. Conflict is a second layer of that. I'm glad you brought that up, and I may as well just talk about it. So, in order to have conflict, you need to. In order to have conflict, you need to do what? Somebody. What's the simple math on conflict with what we just talked about?
Two opposing objectives.
Right. So, or an objective. You have your main character that has an objective. I need to climb Mount Everest. I need to win the race. I need to score a touchdown. Right? That's a character with an objective, right? Which is a story. Like, you can tell a story about a character with an objective and there's no conflict. It'll be boring, but there's a story, right? The guy wants to go from point A to point B. It's a story. We got it, right? So in order to make it a little bit more dramatic and in order for it to be a little bit... What's that? Adversary, yes, yeah. Yes, thank you. You need someone or something to get in the way of that objective. So you're a character who wants to climb Mount. Your character X wants to climb Mount Everest, right? What's the impediment? What's the adversary? Nature, right? You don't necessarily need a villain in that situation. You've got a guy or a girl with a sofa with an incredibly hard objective, an incredibly challenging objective, and it naturally has impediments. Make sense? Now, if your objective isn't that difficult, I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and all she wants to do is is grab the remotes out of everyone's hand. So or phone. So anytime like somebody's got a phone or like got a remote, she tries to get the remote out of that person's hand, right? Her story is she wants the remote. That's it. It's a simple story. It's the objective. I want the remote, right? The obstacle is that her big brother don't want her to take the remote because she takes the remote and she changes the channels, right? So I could kind of watch that because there's objectives and there's conflict. I can kind of watch that all day. It's so entertaining. You see someone, a baby is crying. A baby is crying because they wake up in the morning and they want their bottle. And you have to forgive me. I've got 4 kids, and I'm like, a lot of my references are going to be to crying babies in the middle of the night. But forgive me. We'll adjust. A baby wakes up and she's screaming, she's crying. My Baba, all I want is my Baba. Like, she has a primal objective. What does she want, right? What does she want? Anybody?
Bottle.
She wants her bottle, right? And are we rooting for her to get her bottle?
Yes.
Right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, we're rooting for her to get her bottle. If we have a baby in her room screaming at the top of her lungs, like, I want my bottle, or just crying that she's hungry, or that, she pooped her diaper, or whatever it is, she's screaming to achieve something. Let's just say focus on the bottle for a second. She's screaming for the bottle, right? Now, it's not that interesting because somebody in our house, most likely me or my wife, are going to wake up, walk into her room, pick her up, make a bottle for her, feed her, and calm her down, right? But so that's not that interesting to root for. But let's say I wasn't home and my wife got terribly drunk and she passed out and she was wearing earplugs, and my baby was screaming at the top of her lungs for mommy and for her bottle. Like, suddenly now we as the audience are like, holy, like, cow, like, get up. You're like rooting for her to go, like, get up. And now this would never happen. I just want to, if my wife is watching her, of course this would never happen with my wife, maybe with me, but not with my wife. But let's just say that was in order to tell an interesting story, that baby's primal objective, which you're rooting for. Everyone's rooting for a baby to get food, and they're screaming they want it so bad. They want it so bad. And the primal objective is to get there. Now, let's just say nobody responded. The opening of your movie is 5 minutes of a baby screaming in a crib that she wants her baba, right? And you just cut to an adult that's not there, and take it out of my house because it's going to start to get dark and weird. But let's just put it in a movie. There's an adult who's not listening and isn't waking up, and the baby somehow figures out how to climb out of. She starts to like put her foot on the edge of the crib, right? And you're suddenly like, holy cow, is that baby like trying to like actually handle this herself? And you're kind of like, wow, that's kind of amazing. But it's why is that? Why are you intrigued now? Anybody? Why are you intrigued to that story?
I want to see what happens next.
Right, because it's its own Everest, right? So the fact is that's like getting a bottle of milk in the middle of the night is pretty easy for grown-ups or even children, but like to see a baby try and figure out how to climb out of a crib, fall onto the floor, get hurt, get up, walk to the refrigerator, and then scream for another 5 minutes at the refrigerator like she's trying to open it. You're suddenly like there's conflict. This is her Everest. There's a primal objective. The Everest, the objective is that the impediment is that it's hard for a baby to climb out of a crib and go into the kitchen and open up a refrigerator and climb to the top, pour milk out into the bottle and feed herself. It's pretty much impossible, which makes the attempt and the baby's attempt to do this really intriguing, because ultimately a great story, you want a really, really, really challenging objective. You want something that your main character has to accomplish, something that is seemingly impossible. That makes sense? I have no idea where I start, where we were when I just got into that. Bethany, where were we before I started going off on the baby with the bottle and my drunk wife?
We were talking about the story that we had. So the next thing we tackle is world. I say, right?
Got it. Yeah. So just to review, and let me repeat that whole baby story. I'm kidding. No, just to review. So the first thing we're looking at is the first thing we talked about is a character. Is that right? First thing we talked about is a character. So if you find an article that is just specifically, it's somebody's obituary that like you see and you're like, wow, that's kind of an interesting person, an interesting character. That's one thing, right? That's a single, right? Or do we change all the terms? We'll call it a single for now, right? Then the next thing we just talked about is story. So in order for there to be story, there just needs to be an objective, right? That's it. That's all it is. It's guy wants to walk again. Guy wants to race. Guy who is paralyzed wants to race in the BMX biking, whatever, from the article that we looked at last week. Like that's a story, right? What's the third thing that we're looking for? Anybody? Bethany, what's the third one?
We're looking for world.
We're looking for a world. Do we have an example?
Yeah.
Is there anyone who has an example? Jesse, is there another person I could just call on? Bethany, you're awesome. I want to share the voice love. Yeah. You've been awesome. Thank you for all your answers.
How about Elias Gwynn?
Elias. Yeah, Elias. Do you mind hopping on?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Elias. Everyone say hey, Elias.
Hey, Elias.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you, man?
Good. What's up? Do you mind just giving us what the third one was?
World?
Yeah, a world. So what's an example of a world from like the article that, one of the articles that you found or articles that some of the other people found?
Right. Well, I mean, it can actually be like the physical setting in terms of the location.
clear. It's also, it can be more thematic related. So it's also the time that it takes place. You know, the time like chronologically, if it takes place in the 1920s or the 1970s or currently. It's also sort of the rules of the world. So if it's you know, if it's in Alaska in the winter, for example, then you know there's no daylight. So the world, it kind of is everything that encompasses the time and place that the story takes place.
Great. That sound pretty awesome. So with that, those are, you know, if we find an article with one of those things, it's okay. It's like, you know, like that's something's interesting. That's an interesting read. If we find something with like two of those things, you're like, oh, interesting. This could be something. You know, maybe there's a little invention we do here, right? If you find something that has three of those things, if you find the trifecta in an article, you know you've got something. You know you've got something in there, and those are the articles that I would start with. You know, there's still going to be many impediments to your guys' and my objective, which is to write a great movie and or TV show, our own personal journey and our own personal objective, that goal, that goal that's burning inside us, that we have to go, you know, the goal that's burning inside me, that I've got to write something that's like I'm going to be walking on an airplane in a year and I want to see everybody on the airplane laughing at there's something I wrote. Like, to me, like, that's my goal. And I'm trying really hard to get there. It's hard. The impediments that you go through to get there, it's hard, and it's a struggle. It's the baby getting the bottle out of the refrigerator in the middle of the night. By the way, I've never used that baby getting the bottle out of the refrigerator in the middle of the night story ever before, but I kind of like it. Anyway, so with that, Elias, I'm just going to jump into these are the articles that were sent in.
These are
the articles, not beat sheets.
Oh, the articles.
Is that this?
The new ones, yeah.
Yeah, so hard lessons in living. I don't know who sent this in, but it says hard lessons in living off the grid. A family tried to build its own sustainable paradise in Hawaii. Then Tesla's batteries came to town. Whose is this, by the way?
It says it right there. That's the beat sheet.
Gabriel, you, Elias, thank you. Gabriel, you mind hopping on? Gabriel, you there? Does somebody want to pretend to be Gabriel for the sake of this class?
Oh, Gabriel says, sorry, I have to call again.
Oh.
I guess he got cut off.
Got it. All right, so why don't we just start while... Elias, you still there? Nah, it's all right. All right, so why don't we just start off with Elias? Like, hard lessons in living off the grid. A family tried to build its own sustainable paradise in Hawaii. Then Tesla's batteries came to town. Do we think that this is a trifecta? Does anybody think this? Let's just start, right? Is it a character? Yeah. Is it? And I'm, by the way, just going by headlines because I have no idea what this article is. So, go ahead, Elias.
It seems like there might be a trifecta in the article, but the headline doesn't really make it clear. It doesn't make it clear what the story is, and it doesn't make it clear who the characters are.
That's Gabriel.
Hey, Gabe, how are you? Thank you, Elias. Do you mind if I go to Gabe on one here?
All good.
Gabe, how are you doing?
Sorry about that. Good, how are you?
Yeah, everyone should mute their conference line if they're not talking, and if you're on the conference line, make sure you mute your computer speaker, or is it starting to get some feedback?
Including me? I'm kidding. That's a joke.
You're good. There's probably somebody that just had you on their computer speaker and their phone.
That's a joke. I was just joking. Thank you, guys. So Gabriel, can you just walk me through? Because I didn't read the article, but you know, just from the headlines, I can kind of sort of assume some of the things. Do you mind just telling me? Do you think you obviously think it's a trifecta because you went ahead and wrote a beat sheet, which I really love the initiative. But can you explain why it's a trifecta? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. Well, we have the person, Luke, has one.
So okay, so let's just sorry, Gabriel. Like, so just to check the boxes, it's one it's one person. It's about a person, or is it about a family?
Yeah, it is about a family.
So is it gear? Is it from the POV? Or is it from the point of view? Sometimes I say POV, which means point of view. A lot of times in an ensemble movie, you have many different points of view. So you're sort of cutting to different people, and you're telling many stories at the same time. They're interwoven. Or you could have an ensemble that's told through one person's point of view. And it's sort of carried from the way. Is this told from? I guess my question is this told from one person's point of view or from many people's point of view?
One person.
Got it. Okay, so you have one. So you have your main character telling the story, and does it get into who this character is?
Does the article?
Yeah.
Well, the article does not particularly get into what his life is like before he goes on this mission.
Okay.
Off the grid.
Okay, so but
does
it? But it gets into it once he's on the mission.
Right.
Got it. And does it actually say what his objective is?
Yeah, to live entirely off the grid.
Got it. Okay, and what's the world that it's set in?
That'd be the Hawaiian rainforest.
The Hawaiian rainforest. And does it describe what the Hawaiian rainforest like? Does it describe the Hawaiian rainforest in the article?
No, not in very much detail.
Got it. So within the article, what would you say is the most, like, if you were to write a movie based on this article, where would you need the most invention? Meaning, would you need the most invention in terms of character, world, or story?
Definitely story.
Got it. So one thing that I would say, and just, again, I haven't read the article, but it just in speaking to you, and like as we're going through these things, and in the search of a trifecta. Now, let me just bear in mind, it's challenging. It is challenging to find the trifecta. It's not the kind of thing that's going to be. It's not the kind of thing where you're going to like find a trifecta by like just opening up the news and reading it today. You might, but most likely you're going to have to look hard to find a trifecta. But just off of and Gabriel, you'll have to forgive me because you're a little bit on the chopping block here, and I'm gonna just kind of use this as a teaching example, if that's cool. You there?
Yeah.
And by all, I know that you wrote a beat sheet, which is awesome. And you may have solved all these issues in your beat sheet. You may have created an amazing beat sheet that can be a great story with your own invention. All that's good. But what I really want to focus on right now is just nailing down nailing down the trifecta, and how this is an example of, is it a trifecta or is it not a trifecta? So for me, it's definitely is it a world? Yeah, it's definitely a world, right? You're in the Hawaiian rainforest. Is it set current in present day? Is it current? I would imagine, to talk about Tesla,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Is it a character? Anybody?
It's one.
Does this article have a character?
Yeah.
In it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. Right. So you definitely have a character. You have someone who decides that he's going to take his family. How many kids? Does he have a wife and kids?
Just one kid.
He has one kid. So does he have a wife? Is he married?
No, they're not married.
Oh, so it's just he's a single. Is he a sing? Oh, he's got a girlfriend.
Right.
So, okay, so he and his girlfriend take their kid off the grid, and they move to Hawaii, to the rainforest, and then and that's kind of what we have, right? And you said you had to do the most inventing with the story, right? I just want to dissect, and I just wanted to dissect a little bit why that's the case and why this article isn't a story. And if we just break it down to what we said up in the beginning, what's the most important thing for there to be a story?
Okay.
Do you remember what we talked about in terms of what's the most important thing?
Oh, for the character to have an objective.
Correct. So the objective that you stated is to live off the grid, right? Yeah. So that's not just to live off the grid it's not an active objective, because you're not watching the character try to accomplish, just in what you pitched, and you're not watching the character try to accomplish something, right? So the bulk of the movie of just a guy who's trying to live off the grid is just not, you're not expressing, or at least in the article it doesn't express the how, what the actual objective is, what he's actually trying to do just by living. Now, it might be that what he's trying to do is survive, right? He's a guy who's trying to survive and survive against all of the elements, and survival is definitely an active objective. You're watching somebody try to, survival is an active objective, and living is an actual objective if and only if it's an Everest, meaning you could only, if you have to survive elements. So if you see a movie or you read a book or you see someone who's stuck on the ocean or lost at sea and they're trying to survive, it's not just that they're trying to survive. What are you rooting? If you watch, if you watch a movie or read that book, what was the Angelina Jolie, Unbreakable, which to me, one of my favorite books ever. He's lost at, here's a guy who's lost at sea. You're not watching that movie. If that movie was just about him surviving and sitting at sea and watching how long he can sit at sea, that would be the most boring book ever. That's not the case. Ultimately, what you're rooting for is for him to find land and to find help. So the surviving is just kind of a reactive objective, a passive objective. So Gabe, I don't you again, this is me just going off of the headline and what you just said, and I have no doubt that you probably came up with some great stuff and invented a lot of stuff. You probably invented a lot of stuff in what you did in the beat sheet, correct?
Yeah, I have him eventually burning down the rainforest after trying to do his best job to reduce his carbon footprint. Everything goes wrong in him growing his own food, supplying his own electricity and plumbing, and eventually his life falls apart. His wife and kid leave him, and he's left alone to try to really live off the rainforest. And as things go wrong, he ends up burning down his acre of land. That's where I took it.
Got it. So ultimately, I'm not 100% sure what, I'm not 100% sure what I'm rooting for in what you just pitched me. However, there's a really funny idea about a guy, and I don't know whether it's a comedy or a drama or a really tragic story that you're the tone, but my mind goes to a little bit of that sounded, the burning down the rainforest, because it's so ironic. It sounded comedic to me. Is that what you were going for, or no?
Yeah, and I guess it turned that way when I made the decision to do that. I could see everything in sort of a lighter tone than it was when I started out.
Got it.
So
just to, and then I want to just to track time, because I just want to make sure we don't run out of it before we get into some of the beat sheets. Let's just say there was a guy. This guy had this mission. He wanted to reduce his carbon footprint. He was a guy who was he was one of those guys who just wanted to reduce their carbon footprint and live off the grid, and he would only do local and like whatever one of those guys would be, and he convinces his family like this is the way to go, and they like sell everything and they leave the city, and he quits his job as an investment banker or whatever it was he was doing, and he goes to try and find true happiness. And ultimately that's kind of the goal there. Like if you're trying to live off the grid, it's sort of like I want to try and find true, like that's kind of what he's seeking, or what I would assume one who goes to try and live off the grid, unless they're running from the cops or they're trying to search for gold. They're trying to find happiness, and so they go to he moves to the rainforest and accidentally burns it down, right? And then his wife and kid leave him because he's an idiot, right?
Yep.
To me, that happens on page 12, and then between page 12 and 25 you've got the debate section, right? Like, what do we do? What do I do? And now it's like how ultimately he's got a really clear objective, which is I have to figure out how to win my wife and kids back, and how do I do that? I've got to figure out how to like replant the rainforest and save all the things that I actually just screwed up because it was the mission of my life, but I made a mistake. So now I have to. So now you're sort of watching. Now it's sort of we're rooting for someone to do something. Like we're rooting for someone to get from point A to point B. His ultimate goal is to win his family back. His Everest. His objective is how do I win my. His objective is to win my family back. The storyline is what he's going to go through and what's the impediments. The impediment is I lost everything because I was an idiot, and then I accidentally like burned down a rainforest and caused all these other issues. So what am I going to have to do in order to fix? How does one go about fixing a rainforest after accidentally burning it down? I have no idea. But to me, I'd be interested in watching that movie and watching this guy try to figure this thing out, because I'm curious. He was going there with a good heart and with good intentions, and he made a mistake. And you're watching it, and we've all made mistakes. We could all identify with that. And the idea that we're rooting for a guy to be forgiven and a guy to sort of to win his family back, it's a great objective. So anyway, I would encourage you to keep looking for. I would encourage you to keep looking for a trifecta article, Gabe. But in addition, keep working on this. Like I wouldn't. If you wanted to work on. I never want to tell people not to work on something. So if you have a vision or you have a clear vision for this movie, I want to encourage everybody to just write as much as you possibly can. I just want to walk you guys through the process that I believe will lead you guys towards the path of least resistance. Does that make sense? All right, so thank you so much. I'm just going to take a drink of water. How much time do we have? 5:40.
20 minutes.
Guys, can I just get a little bit of feedback on how we're doing technologically today? Are you guys feeling like this is working better than the previous weeks?
Yeah, I mean, everything sounds great. The video is still about 45 seconds delay, so I'm not even bothering to watch the video, but in terms of listening, it sounds great.
You can watch the video later.
Oh, you can watch the video later?
Yeah.
All right, we are working on a way to make it actual live, because I hear they could do those things now. So one day we're going to figure that out, and we'll make it better. So thank you guys for sending in these beat sheets. My question to you guys, I guess this is to Jesse, are these beat sheets all from articles that we collectively agreed were trifectas last week?
Not all of them.
Not all of them. Can I just, if I go through these beat sheets, I want to work off of the ones that we selected as trifectas. So if I call your name and it was a trifecta, do you mind just hopping on and saying that was a trifecta? Bethany, are you there? Was yours a trifecta? Bethany, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, was
Yeah,
your
I'm here.
hey Bethany, was your article a trifecta? Did we collectively agree to?
I believe last week you said we were missing a little bit of a story to it because it was like a body found. What I did is I gave myself a liberty of kind of making up a story that went with it, and like they gave me an inch and I took a mile, so that's what I did.
Got it. So
I wanna hear it.
your story, your article was about the bodies that were found, the parents. Is that right?
Yeah, a body was found, and then it talked about how they found another boy's body around the same time, and that's kind of where I got the story of what's the story of this other boy that was found with this other kid's body.
Got it.
What was the relationship these two young men had together, while they were stuck in this horrible situation? That was my
Got it.
thought process was.
Got it. And Kevin Haven, are you there? Kevin Haven there?
There were two trifectas, Owen and Harris.
There.
Kevin Haven, you there? Not responding, so we're just gonna. So Owen and who else?
And Harris Rothfeld.
Owen and Harris. Okay. So we're gonna just go. Who's that?
Yeah.
Kevin. Who's that? Who's speaking? Who's me? Who's I'm here?
Oh, this is Kevin.
Hey Kevin, how are you, man? I was just going through. I was seeing if yours was an approved trifecta. But Jesse just told me.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear it last week if it was or not. So I just created one and sent it in.
Got it. So I'm gonna just, if it's cool, it looks like we've got two here that were approved trifectas, which one is done by Owen and one's done by Harris. So Kevin, we're gonna hold off on yours for a second, and we're just gonna go to Harris's and Owen's. Harris and Owen, are you guys there?
Hey Jeremy, this is Owen.
Hey Owen, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I'm looking at your. Can you remind me what your story was? What your article was?
So this is basically Jim Harris. He gets into an accident. He's a sports guy, action sports guy, and he gets into an accident. Action sports your whole life, and then he loses the ability to do that because he's paralyzed, and he has to come back from that.
Got it. I remember that. So why don't we just start with your beat sheet now? Just to review, did everybody go and download the Blake Snyder beat sheet or read the beat sheet book? Everyone knows what we're doing. Yeah, that's an important thing. Like Save the Cat, Blake Snyder, really important book to read. And if you don't have time to read the book, totally understand. You probably don't have time to be a screenwriter, but you should definitely get this book. So Owen, beat sheet, recovering mountain biker. Let's just start, like, if we're pitching this thing, like, and we're trying to really convince. Let's just convince the people who are in this room. We've got 6 people in this room, myself not included. We're going to convince everybody here to greenlight this movie, right? And what we normally do. What'd you say?
Lead the way, Jeremy.
Okay, so we're going to convince everybody to greenlight this movie. So now, what we're doing is each of the steps that we go through in this class, right, will hopefully push you guys towards the next step in writing a screenplay, right? So, Owen, you found an article that was a trifecta. It was greenlit to go on to the next phase, which is this beat sheet. You read Save the Cat, right, Owen?
I just started reading.
Perfect. Good answer. He almost did all of his homework, and he's done a beat sheet. So, what's amazing? What's great about this beat sheet? Do you guys see it?
It's got a lot of white.
It's got a lot of white.
White space.
Yoni, what's great about this beat sheet?
Not sure.
So,
The page.
you see this? Okay, so hold on. Owen, can you hear me? So,
Yep.
I'm just gonna use that as an example, and I apologize to anybody here. Hold on, but just gonna use an example. By the way, everyone did a pretty good job on this. So when you're going in to try again, like I'm going to try and guide you guys through all things that are red flags and trying to give you guys a little bit of insight into giving you the best path towards success, right? Ultimately, anybody could say no. Anybody from I don't know if anybody in this class are part of the our reading group, and if you are, firstly, thank you guys. You're all doing an awesome job. But it's really, really, really easy for someone to read a script that somebody worked on for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years and say, I didn't like it. I was bored. I didn't like the characters. It wasn't funny. I didn't get it. It's simple. It's really, really hard for a decision maker to say yes, right?
Unless you're
Unless, what were you saying?
unless you're paying billions of dollars for original content and you're saying yes to everything.
Well, no. Ultimately, you've got to have. Ultimately, if you are that person, you're going to be in a position, right? And this is the point I was getting to. Ultimately, if you are a decision maker, you're the person who's going to say, yes, I want to greenlight this movie. I want to move this to the next thing. I want to buy this script. I want to do whatever it is. You're not going to have a lot of time, right? You're basically going to be you're going to be reading a gazillion things and being pulled in a gazillion places. So ultimately, as a script or a beat sheet or whatever presentation you're doing gets kicked up a ladder, you want to give yourselves the best chance that that thing gets read and the best chance that that thing gets said yes to. So ultimately, you don't want to give anybody an opportunity to say no. So if I'm given 5 scripts on a Friday and said, okay, we need to choose one of these scripts to send to my financier, my partner and financier, and I have to read one of these scripts that I have to support and love, and then get it to him to read that. And I've got 5 scripts and I open them up, right? And one is 95 pages and one's 140 pages. What do you guys think I'm going to want to read first? Right?
95.
One is written like, one's perfectly formatted and it doesn't have typos and it's there are no mistakes, and the other one has a typo or looks a little bit sloppy on the first couple pages, right? You don't want to give anybody a reason to say no, and you always want to incentivize people to read your thing first. So when I look, all of these are all just little things that I've never learned. I never learned in film school, and I think they don't teach them these things in film school. But ultimately, if I've got, just without looking at names, or I can even cover up the names, so I don't want to make an example of anybody, but ultimately, like, looking at these two things, right? I've got this one, and I've got this one. I've got this one and then I've got this one, super thick. 1, 2, 3. So this might be genius, right? I might be making the worst mistake in my life by saying, wow, this was way too long. I can't read this because I just don't have time. Like, I might be passing on Pulp Fiction or Braveheart or, Airplane. But that's just because my bandwidth as a decision maker isn't big enough to get into this. I'm going to choose this one, right? Does that make sense to all you guys? Okay. I'm also going to share, and I don't know if you've shared this, but and I don't know how many people are listening, and if I say this, it's please don't judge me on this. A lot of times that I have, like, my times for reading things is in the bathroom. And when I get an email that says, XYZ, and I can read in the bathroom and quickly respond. Or if I get something that I'm really excited about, but it's, I can read it within that minute or that minute and a half that I'm in the bathroom, to me, your beat sheet or anything important that you want to get read, it should be as concise as possible, and you should think about whether or not that person is going to read it like your thing versus the long thick thing while they're in the bathroom. Does that make sense? Cool. They don't teach you that in film school, but anyway, Owen, you there? Did I lose Owen? He's like, I'm hanging up. I can't. He's like, you're already going to the potty humor. So Owen, let's just go through it. We're gonna try and get you to the next phase, which is the next phase will be the treatment phase. So, all right, guys, I've got an amazing idea for a movie. You guys listen to it? Okay, first, here's what it's called. You ready? Recovering Mountain Biker. What do you think?
I wrote the titles for you.
Oh,
For your sake.
great. Thanks. I'm blaming Jesse, but this will be a lesson for everybody. Okay, so Jesse wrote the titles on all these things for me, right? So when we're sending something in and when we're trying to sell, again, like when we're trying to sell something, we're trying to get somebody to read one thing versus another, think about marketing yourself beyond just executing a screenplay. So, Owen, apologies to you. There was no title. I was blaming Jesse, who came up with a brilliant title of Recovering Mountain Biker.
That's pretty much it. It wasn't mountain biking, but close enough.
Right. So I would work on coming up with something that's coming up with 1 or 2 or 3 options for a title, and maybe by the end of this, in the next 8 minutes, we can do that. So all right, picture it, guys. It's Recovering Mountain Biker. It's just the title for now. We're working on it still. All right. So we're introduced to Jim Harris. Okay. Who's playing Jim Harris?
How about you?
Does anybody here? So does anyone? I'm the worst. Does anyone here know who? If I say Jim Harris, does anyone know who Jim Harris is? Anybody? Anybody on the phone know who Jim Harris is? Okay, so I think we may have talked about it. Okay, so why don't we say we're introduced to Jim Harris, picture a young
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt? Is that what you're suggesting? Well, it's Owen's movie. Owen, who do you want to be in?
That could be cool. I like Chris Pratt.
All right, so we picture Chris Pratt. All right, so we're introduced to Chris. All right, now we're in it. It's like Chris Pratt, okay, and his action sporting lifestyle, right? He's seen participating in tons of different action sports. Okay, so how can we improve that? Anybody? So one note on the improving right there. What did I do? So the two notes so far is come up with the title, and what was the second note I had so far? Anybody, just jump in.
Give us a mental picture.
Just give us a mental picture of who's the star, like what's the person who we're rooting for. Cool? Got that, Owen? Did I lose you?
Yeah, we're rooting for Chris Pratt.
Great, I love it. So we meet Chris Pratt and his action sporting lifestyle, right? He's seen participating in tons of different action sports, right? What does that mean?
Yep.
Well, so how can we improve that? Anybody?
Give a visual.
Yeah, it's like-
Chris Pratt's jumping on a bike coming off a dirt mound.
Speak up so they can hear you.
Chris Pratt's coming on a BMX bike off a dirt mound, flips and lands it perfectly, and then cut to another scene of him doing something where he's on a jet ski or a snowmobile, doing some other kind of trick.
Are you hearing, Owen?
Yeah, I was imagining things getting more and more intense.
Like what?
Until the action.
Like what?
Jumping through fire.
Like, the sporting event, I don't know, like hanging off of hang gliders with one hand. Or
Guys. Okay, so we meet. So we.
It just builds and gets, more and more dangerous.
We're introduced to Jim Harris. Picture Chris Pratt on hanging off a hang glider with one arm, with one hand, right? Okay, so does that feel better than we are introduced to Jim Harris and his action-packed sporting life?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that note. All right. So let's go to the setup. The next step. So setup. What page is the setup? Which page should the setup be on?
2 through 10.
Anybody?
5-ish, 6-ish.
Everything up until page 10.
Okay. So it becomes clear to us Jim is obsessed with action sports. He is addicted, and his thirst for more dangerous activities keeps growing. He has little time for anything else in his life. So we've already shown that Chris Pratt is hanging with a hand glider, hanging with one hand off a hand glider. So his obsession with action sports is clear. So it doesn't feel like we necessarily need to repeat that. He's addicted, and his thirst for more dangerous activities keeps growing. So if you show that, another one, and you kind of get that. But what you do tell me in this setup is really important, and I'd love to specify and clarify. He has little time for anything else in his life. What does that mean? How could that be improved? Owen.
I guess make sure it's like, so you know, like what it is, like friends and family, like people maybe.
Well, so he doesn't have time for people, specifically like who?
Like if still farther down, it's his girlfriend that he doesn't have time.
Okay, so he lands, right? He lands in a pit of fire, right? I'm just, and he does it. He's celebrated by everybody. That's your opening image, right? And then he comes home and he missed his girlfriend's birthday. Shit, it was today, right? You with me?
Yeah.
Got it. So rather than saying he has little time for anything else in his life, just give us an image or give us something that demonstrates that with more specificity. Who's his girlfriend?
Who's his girlfriend?
Yeah, you're writing this movie and you're gonna make it. Who should be Chris Pratt's girlfriend who he doesn't have time for?
I need to think about it.
What'd you say?
Let's go with Amy Schumer.
Great. Amy Schumer. Chris Pratt lands as like, you missed my birthday. And Amy Schumer, and they get into a fight. All right, so then, theme stated, right? Jim's girlfriend gets hurt on a mountain. So Amy Schumer gets hurt on a mountain biking accident. The girlfriend has been trying to keep up with Jim's adrenaline pursuit. Okay, after the accident, she tries to convince Jim to slow down, but they end up getting into a fight and she dumps him. Got it, okay? So, could that be part of, I think I jumped the gun with the image because you did do an image there with the theme stated. Correct? They break up?
Yeah, correct.
Now,
I was kind of thinking that, but I didn't really write it down like I should have.
It's all good. This is all, honestly, like, this is all, like, we're learning. Like, this is a class, and I just want to, and you're the first beat sheet we're going through, and we just want to use this as a teaching example, right? And I also, how much time do we have left?
It's 5:59.
Oh, guys, we're running out of time, and I apologize because I tend to kind of go off the rails every once in a while, and I apologize for that. But why don't we just try to go through catalyst, debate, and then break into two, and then hopefully for next week, Owen, you can make some of these changes, and the notes that we're giving to Owen can be addressed with anybody else who did the beat sheet, and everyone else can continue to look for the trifectas. So, catalyst. Jim's in a sky kite accident that leaves him paralyzed. Okay? We get it, right? Good image. It makes for drama, right? Debate. The idea of no longer being able to do action sports is unimaginable. He no longer has the will to live. Okay? We get it, right? This is what he lived for. This is the only thing he wanted in life, right? And he loses the will to live, right? Break into two, choosing act two. In the hospital, he meets a paralyzed 10-year-old girl that is going through physical therapy. Her attitude towards her situation encourages Jim to try to overcome his injury. Okay? Do we like that as a break into two?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay, so
at the
Is there a way to make that a little bit more specific? Like a very specific goal of overcome his injury and then what? Like overcome his injury in order to do what? Owen?
Action sports again.
Got it.
Get back into his lifestyle.
Got it. So, I think when we talked about this last time, we did a little bit of invention about, there's some sort of event and or race that he did to make this a little bit more specific and a little bit more dramatic. I think we and forgive me because it's 2 weeks and I got a lot going on. So, but I believe, and you may not have liked this, which is fine, but I believe what we talked about was the fact that he was in some sort of a mountain bike race or some sort of crazy event up front where he got paralyzed and decided that that was the only thing he ever wanted in life. And then he went to the hospital and it was ready to be over. He meets a little girl, or he finds somebody who just like convinces him that he's got to do something. He's got to live. And he gets the idea that he's going to win that event, whatever that event is, whether it's run the marathon, do a mountain biking race, climb Mount Everest, win the Super Bowl, whatever that fill in the blank thing is. If there's something that, again, going back to the baby in the bottle, if there's something that seems seemingly impossible, right? You're looking at a paralyzed guy who who can only move his toes, who basically like, think of it this first. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like Diving Bell and the Butterfly, but he learns to he learns to communicate, and we don't know where he's like learning to communicate with, and he's just doing it with his eye, and like, and he's trying to to speak to someone, and they're writing it down, and literally like he spells out, I'm going to win the New York City Marathon. And just like imagine what kind of Everest that is, and what kind of you're rooting for that guy, because the same way that you're rooting for someone to for that baby to get a bottle, because it's an impossible task. It's Rudy. I don't know if you guys have seen Rudy. Have you seen Rudy, Owen? The movie? Okay, so homework for everybody is to watch Rudy, because so watch, if you haven't seen Rudy recently, watch it again. If you've seen Rudy, if you've never seen it, watch it immediately, and really pay attention to what his objective is and why you're rooting for him the entire time. I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to talk about it because I'd love to discuss it with you guys once you've seen it. But go back, watch Rudy, and I dare all of you not to cry. And then we'll do a little Rudy analysis. But so let's just review thank you, Owen. And by the way, thank you everybody for tuning in. Should I be looking do you like it better if I look at the camera like this? Is that better for you guys? I'm just trying to figure out my.
45 seconds. Yeah, I'll tell you in 45 seconds.
Stare into the camera.
Oh, and does this work better?
It's still so delayed, so it's hard to tell.
Got it. So we have to do some work on this. Anyway, my point is, thank you guys for everything. Thank you for doing your homework and indulging me in this class. And let's make sure we're doing it next week at the same time. Again, to review your homework, let's try and find that trifecta. If you have questions about what the trifecta is, do me a favor, email Jesse. He could help you with that. If you have questions about the beat sheet, Jesse will help you with that. But let's try and find the trifecta that gets everybody to greenlight your concept and your idea. And then once that's greenlight, we'll move you to the beat sheet stage. If you've written a beat sheet on an approved trifecta, go back and take sort of what we discussed with Owen and try to make some tweaks based on what we discussed. So guys, not even episode, we're class number 5. We're still trying to figure it out a little bit, but we'll get there by class 119. And thank you for your patience on the technology front, and I very much appreciate it. And I'll see you all in either next Thursday via email and Skype or whatever this is called, or in Syracuse. All right. And